Yeah, so welcome. About these titles and accomplishments, my husband calls that I'm a certification junkie, and that's true. When I started learning to become a coach, I constantly study something. I learned something new, and I feel that it is the only way which can help me to see that I'm right in track with my skills as a coach as well. Yeah, because being a coach is a pretty lonely job. We don't have managers who constantly give us feedback. Yeah, we've got feedback for our clients, but sometimes it is not as substantial as it could be. So yeah, I like learning. I like getting new credentials because it can help me to see if I'm moving in the right direction. I'm so grateful for this invitation. As I as well shared with everybody before the call started, I'm getting over COVID. So if I cough from time to time, I'm sorry, that's the repercussion of it. I try to mute myself then. But we're going to talk about the topic which is relevant not only for coaches, but it's relevant for every human being. We're going to talk about trust and safety. So if you are leaders as well who use coaching skills, or you are HR professionals who use coaching skills, even though you're not pursuing the credentials, the topic might be really relevant to you, because a lot of things which are described by ICF inner competencies, either from ACC bars or PCC markers or MCC minimum requirements, actually we can really translate it in any human relationship. We can really use this suggestions in communication with others. Okay, so let me share my presentation first with you. Okay, let's do it this way. And so I can see you as well. Let's go in a presenter mode. Wonderful. Just a housekeeping rule. There will be, of course, place to ask questions. So please type the questions in the chat box whenever they show up for you. And when we in the presentation, I will have 3 spaces to stop and to ask questions. And then I will ask one of the people who are supporting me here, or Aruna or VG, with helping me out with questions. So unlock the power of trust and safety in coaching relationship. And we are talking about Mastering Competency 4. And when I talk about Competency 4, of course, I'm referring to International Coach Federation competency. What's the agenda for today's meeting? So I'm going to actually talk both about the science and the art of coaching. So science, we're going to look deeply into different expectations from coaches on ACC, PCC, and MCC levels, and we're going to look at this journey, how it unfolds, what is expected at a different level. And I'm going to actually show you on slides, a little bit crowded slides, but I would really like to use the language which ICF uses to describe this competency on a different level, just to show you certain shades or differences in building trust and safety during the coaching relationship. Then we're going to really think about how to master it. And that's the art. So how to think about the 3 kinds of trust we really pay attention to in the coaching relationships. And I hope it's going to be revealing, and discover how we can, through trust, foster transformative coaching connections. Because however, trust is something very intangible. You cannot weigh it or measure it. Or it is really hard for us to pinpoint this, like that's trust, this is what happened here. Somehow it is indispensable part of successful coaching relationship. And let me start not with coaching, but with the science of trust itself. And I would not be really digging deeper into this topic if I didn't mention Paul Zak. Actually, Paul J. Zak, that's how he usually titled what he uses when he writes the books. He is the main expert on trust and what's happening when we build the trustworthy relationships with others. So what he said is that trust is fundamentally a relational emotion. It means the trust shows up in the relationships with others. So that's an important thing to remember. And according to Paul Zak, something is happening in our brain when there is trust. And he says that there is this powerful cocktail of oxytocin and dopamine. He even calls oxytocin the molecule of trust. So, oxytocin, usually we think oxytocin, we think love, we think parenthood, but he says, no. If we trust one another, actually oxytocin shows up and dopamine as well shows up, and that nurtures connection, but it nurtures openness as well. And if we really think about it, both of these things like connection and openness are very important for fostering healthy coaching relationships. I'm sorry. What I mean by that is that in coaching, this kind of trust, when we are open and we feel connected with one another, when we're partnering with one another, this trust acts as a catalyst and enables clients to embrace vulnerability. So that's so important. Yeah, we want our clients to be open, honest, and courageous, and as well vulnerable with us and with themselves. Then they are ready to explore uncharted territories and confront challenges with confidence. So that's what trust does with this cocktail of oxytocin and dopamine in our brain. So as coaches, cultivating trust means not only understanding our coachees' needs, but also creating an environment when they feel secure to share, to learn, and evolve. But you know what? The word vulnerability will show up here once more, especially when we're going to look at the MCC level of coaching. And then we'll talk that MCC coaches, in order to build trust, show their vulnerability to the client as well. So you see, if we have a trust in the room, trust between client and a coach, this oxytocin and dopamine cocktail is building or happening as well in the brain of the coach. So you see, it is like the mutual flow in between coach and coachee. This trust and safety is not only for coaches, not only for clients, but it is well for us. It helps us to use ourselves more as an instrument in the session, to be more courageous, to challenge more our clients. So everything what is so necessary in the coaching relationship. But when we look at the Paul Zak research, and by the way, if you're interested, he wrote 2 books. One is The Moral Molecule, so it's about oxytocin, and the second one is A Trust Factor. You can start with his TED Talk about trust, or just read Harvard Business Review article, The Neuroscience of Trust. And what he says is that, and that's interesting, what he shows. He shows 2 important things, that trust actually is connected with the big why, that we understand why we are here. Yes, what is the purpose of us being there? So it's easier for us to trust each other if we understand why we are connected. So you can see, even though we are talking about competency 4, we need to be really good at setting agreements and setting contracts. So, competency 3. So that's so important, that even though we are talking about 4, it connects with the ability to contract well with a client, because according to the science, we evoke more trust when we understand, we have a clarity about why we are here, what we want to accomplish, and what is the end result of it. Okay? And there is another thing which is interesting. People have different approach to trust. Some people believe that trust is, you have to gain it first, that you have to work through it. Yeah, that I give you the carte blanche at the beginning, like a blank page, and you have to earn your trust. And Paul Zak proved that it's otherwise, that actually we need to start with trust. that we need to start with trust, thinking that this is a, how to call it nicely, that we've got the deposits in our emotional trust bank. It's not that our emotional trust bank account is empty, but that it's full, and we start with a full bank. So it means that we as a coach, we coaches, we trust that our clients are creative, capable, generative, and that they have enough wisdom within them that they are able to deal with the challenges which show up during the coaching process. So you see two important things which are shown in this, actually three. I would highlight three important things. One, that trust is a relational emotion, that's the emotion which happens in between people, that it's connected with what's going on in our brain with oxytocin and dopamine. But the second thing connected with this research is that we need to understand the why, have a clarity about why we are here. And as well, the thing that trust is something which we need to start with, not build on, but start with. And that's the science. And I would really, really encourage you at least to watch that talk, because it's very enlightening. As I said, these books, these articles, and this TED Talk is not dedicated to coaches. However, we can learn a lot from Paul Zak research on trust. And before we even move further into the science of ICF, so competencies, I'm really curious, are there any questions so far in the chat box regarding this, like really the science of trust? Yeah, what's going on in our brain, that it's connected with the big why, that it should be given first. It's something we start with, we don't build it. We need to start with trust. Are there any questions in the chat box?
Yes, Inga, there's one from Johnny. In fact, there are three questions, but I'll read Johnny's first. What would be a measure of trust?
What would be the measure of trust? That's a great question. And I think it depends on the context. I would say that in coaching, the measure of trust could be openness. And both sides, remember, trust is mutual there. So openness, both of a coach and a client, and as well vulnerability on both sides. How open we are to admit to some challenges we experience, and both clients and a coach. I would look at these two factors in coaching: openness and vulnerability. And for me, that would be the measure of trust.
Thanks, Inga. There's one more question. It's a longish question, but I would read it verbatim. This is from PMC. The coach is responsible to build trust in the client, but if the coach needs to trust the client before exposing their vulnerability, the question is, how does the coach extract trust from the client because the client has no responsibility towards it? Question mark.
And that's something which actually, according to Paul Zak, it's fundamentally, we have to turn it. Even though we always say that coach is responsible for creating this trustful environment, I do fully agree with you, but actually both sides are responsible for trust, because it is a relational emotion. It's happened in between two people, or if you are a team coach, it happens between you and another person. So from my perspective, we are all responsible for building trust there. And of course, the first step for me is, if there is a person in front of me, a client, I look at them as capable of achieving whatever they want to achieve. And as well, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, there is trust in myself and the trusting process. So these are these elements. But first of all, I would encourage you to look at coaching as partnering. So there is this dynamic in between two people, that's trust building. Because if we only think about ourselves like, oh my God, this is only on me, I'm only responsible for building trust and safety here, like, oh wow, this is on my shoulders all the time, we might actually sometimes get into the rescuer mode. If you think about like the Cartman's drama triangle, yeah, we would do everything so our client feels really safe. meaning that, for example, we will not challenge them enough. But if we trust fully in our clients and we say that they are capable, we will challenge them, for example, more. Yeah, of course, in a way which is not threatening to them, because that's the challenge might be as well threatening. So please think about trust as something in between people, and start with it, like fully trusting that the person in front of you is capable of achieving whatever they want to achieve. That will be for me the starting point.
I mean, there are a couple more questions, but would you like to take one or two more at this point?
Yeah, at least one.
Okay. So let me pick the one that's most closely, I think, linked to what you're talking about. I think this is from Tarun, isn't sincerity a minimum criterion for gaining trust?
Yeah, like we look at sincerity, honesty, candor as the sub-element of trust. Later in the presentation, I'm going to show you that sometimes when we think about the trust outside of the coaching context, there are certain elements, and this is the base. However, and that's the funny thing, and thank you for this question. In a coaching relationship, sometimes we've got the privilege to have this tri-party meeting, yeah, with a like supervisor or with like manager or somebody, or we have some context, yeah, we've got the 360 for a client or some evaluation or some feedback. But very often when I work, even in organization, I don't have this privilege. So I have just another person in front of me, my client, and I listen to how they perceive the world. And sometimes, and these are the things which I supervise. So I was talking to my coach supervisor about that. If I feel that I have a sense that something is not really right there, it's on me to investigate as a coach, like how much I evaluate my client to be honest and sincere. But generally for me, this is a starting point, because even if the client does the storytelling, tell us some stories, some assumptions or biased version of their reality, that's the reality they have right now. And by acknowledging it, that yeah, I see what you're sharing with me, I can understand, I feel that I don't know the pain, or I understand the pain, or I understand where you're coming from, that's a good starting point. Like I cannot imagine starting the coaching relationship with a person in saying, like, contradicting what they say, like, no, I've heard that in your organization is differently than you're claiming, yeah, because this is their reality, that's how they perceive this, the world they are in. And it could be distorted. Yeah, I'm not free from biases as well. So yes, assumption of honesty is the first step. I believe that my client is honest with me, so it means that they tell me this, their version of the world, the version of the world they have access to right now. And hopefully through coaching, they might have a different version of the world. I can give you the example. And this is actually kind of funny example. I remember working with, I work mostly in a tech environment. I live in Silicon Valley right now. And a lot of clients I work with are so-called aberrant geniuses. So very smart people, extremely accomplished in terms of, content of their work. Sometimes neurodivergent, meaning that they might have some social challenges, yeah, in communicating, or the way they communicate might be perceived by other people as challenging or difficult. And I remember working with this leader who had a very blunt way of communicating. Basically, his neurodiversity was visible in the way he gave feedback to somebody. And he used very strong words like, my team is weak, they don't know anything, people are stupid, and so on. And that was his way of communicating, yeah? Like very strong, very blunt, I would say a little bit too straightforward. I'm originally Polish. We are straightforward people, but it was too much for me even. But contradicting him at the beginning wouldn't build this alliance. Yeah, that was the reality he experienced. And what I could offer, it was offer him empathy. By the way, the part of the trust and safety competency, empathy in saying, like, it must be hard working in an environment like this. Yeah. So that was the work. Yeah. Getting alliance, seeing the world a little bit through his eyes. But I did it. Then I had more space to challenge him. And one day, a few sessions ahead, I would say even several sessions ahead, he came back and he said, they changed. Like it is surprising, but they really changed. They are not as bad as I thought. Funny thing is that he didn't have access to this level of self-awareness, and that probably he changed. Not the people. The people are actually the same, but he changed a little bit the way he measured the accomplishments or expectations he had towards them. If I contradicted him at the beginning and said like, oh, what is possible when you think about your team this way? Or how do you feel people experience your feedback and so on, so on. From the day one, if I challenged him from the day one, we wouldn't be building this alliance. So for me, honesty means that I actually try to see the world a little bit through my client's eyes, and whatever story, whatever biased version they show me, I take it as their reality at this moment. I hope that it answers the questions a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that was really in depth. Thank you, Inga. I think there are a couple of questions on destroyal of trust, but I suppose you will touch upon that later.
Yeah.
I think we can move ahead.
We're going to think about that later. Generally, I don't like to think so much about the destroy of trust in a coaching relationship. So much, but of course it happens, unfortunately, and it's good to know what might be the reasons why sometimes clients don't go back to us, and very often it is connected with the damage or decline in trust. They don't come back to us so often. So let's focus now on the science of coaching. And I'm going to share three very crowded slides with you. Saying crowded, I'm going to really dig deeper into competencies. I look at the coaching as the science and the art, and I'm going to tackle both of these elements. We need to understand the science, so competencies, the language or expectations which is used in the description of competencies, if you truly want to have the foundation of a successful relationship. Because think about the jazz musicians. Every very successful jazz musician who is good at improvising and creating new kind of melodies on the spot, they have a very good foundation in classical music. They know how to play in classical way. So science is the foundation. What we do with the science is the art. So that's why, even though we have the same set of competencies, we've got so many different unique coaches all over the world practicing different flavors of coaching, still aligned with what International Coach Federation expects from us at a certain level. And as we go through different levels of credentialing in ICF, from ACC to MCC, expectations are slightly different. And I think it is a smart move, because certain things just come with time, and they come with trusting ourselves in our coaching capacities. That's why what we expect from MCC coach is a little bit different than from a coach who's at the beginning of this journey. And of course, I would encourage you to whatever you are, to aspire to get higher and higher, but don't be hard on yourself if you feel that you are not there yet, because there is a wisdom in it. Some things, they come with time, I would say. Yeah, we really need time to get to the certain level, for example, support or vulnerability in coaching. So let's go first with ACC minimum requirements. And I'm using the description of this competency from ACC bars. That's a training you can as well take with ICF. It's available for everybody. I always recommend, even if you don't want to be a mentor or you don't want to be a supervisor, but you just want to be a good coach, to take the ACC bar and PCC marker training, which is available online for coaches, because it expands your way of thinking and looking at coaching as well. So at the ACC level, when we think about the competency 4, we say that, okay, coach partners with the clients to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the clients to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. And I would like to highlight the first thing which shows up here is they partner. Because in some questions earlier, somebody said that coaches are responsible for trust. ICF says clearly, we're partnering in building trust. It's not that it is our responsibility. We are partners there. We build it together with a client. That's a relational thing between me and you. So we are partnering here. And it needs to be safe, it needs to be supportive, and so the clients can share. So for me, the minimum requirement is actually talking about confidentiality with a client. That's a minimum requirement, that the client understands that everything what they share with us is confidential. Maybe the goals, the general goals, are not confidential, but whatever it is said during the session is just between me and you and in the process. And of course, there is the legal exception, and it differs from country to country. And coaches needs to be aware what are the legal obligation, because there are situations when, for example, according to the like legal system, you will be, for example, obliged to share what was said during the coaching process if it's against the law somehow. But as I said, there are not uniform rules there, so you need to know what is expected in your country, where you live, where you practice coaching. Coaches like me who are globally like working all over the world, we actually need to be aware what's going on all over the world, like country where when we work somehow. And I generally, what I share with my clients, I say that everything what we talk about is confidential. However, if, for example, you are engaged in some illegal practices, which of course has never happened to me before, but if it happens and the police or the court will expect me to witness something, that's actually this is the end of confidentiality. Only the legal obligation can stop confidentiality. No HR department in your organization, no like your leader's request can breach the confidentiality in between us. And as you know, this is very problematic. I hope that it has never happened to you, but sometimes if our clients talk about extreme situations as the work harassment, sexual harassment even, or sometimes they experience really, really difficult thing at work. And we coaches, we feel like, oh my God, I would like to share it with the organization because it's something really bad and detrimental. And hence are ethical challenges around that. Yes, like really, really ethical challenges, what can be shared or not. And very often, we coaches, we are not allowed to do it. We are not allowed to breach the confidentiality. The only thing we can work with the client so they can share with authorities in the organization if they experience bullying or harassment, or they witness bullying and harassment. And this usually when I work as a coach supervisors, these are the topics coaches bring, that they hear something really challenging during the session, but because of the confidentiality agreements, they don't feel that they can share something. So the starting point is confidentiality. And let's talk about it to our clients. Let's make it explicit. And we call it in coaching limited confidentiality because of this legal obligation every coach has. We don't have a patient-doctor confidentiality somehow rule like doctors or psychologists or therapists have. We are still obliged whenever the law or expect us to share something. But how the coach who approaches or is at the ACC level can recognize that they partner successfully in creating this trust and safety. So when we look at the three elements, the first one is that coach acknowledges clients' insights and learnings in the moment. Acknowledges meaning we don't contradict them, or we don't say, it will not work, or, oh, that's not possible. Basically, that's everything what I said about the reality our client has access to. And very often, if we are expert in something, like, for example, I can imagine that some of you might be successful leaders yourself, who had years of experience, and you coach an emerging leader, and they have some ideas or some insights on some lessons, but you, from your own experience, you know that it didn't work for you so well, this kind of insight or lesson. It's not a good step to contradict and to immediately jump into a mentoring position, because We build trust by acknowledging the insight. Sometimes the journey and learning something is very important. Yeah. So let's acknowledge insights and learning a client has in the moment. Then coach explores the client's expressions and feelings, perceptions, concern, belief, or suggestions. So we build trust and safety when we are curious about our clients. So whenever they say, I feel anxious, we dig deeper into it. When say, okay, tell me more about that. If they have some beliefs about the world, about themselves, we stop and as well, we inquire about that. So curiosity, we build trust and safety through curiosity. We want to know more about our clients. And the third element is coach express support and concern for the client, which may focus on the client's context, problem, or situation rather than the client holistically. Meaning that on ACC level, we don't expect really working on the who level of the client, like the really big, like what it means for you overall. It's okay to focus on the problem in the moment, and it's still good enough. So you see, accept the client's version of reality, accept the client's learning, be curious about how client sees the world, what they feel, what are their assumption, beliefs, and concerns. And of course, offer support and concern about the client in the moment in this context. That's good enough at this level. When we go a little bit further to PCC markers now, we look at cultivating trust and safety, and we see that there are elements which are the same, but we add something to them. So the first marker tells us that coach acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching process. So here even coaches I encourage to, if you see some strength or talent, make sure that you give it back to the client. You almost become a strength spotter. And I'm going to share later for you how we can do it, yeah, how to become a strength spotter and not become very directive at this moment. But generally, whatever clients brings to the session, their talents, their work, their insight, we try to show it to them. So for example, at the end of the session, and it's building trust throughout the process, we can acknowledge clients' work. I really appreciate how open and vulnerable you were today. And it builds long-term trust and safety with us, yeah, that the client sees like, oh, this coach sees me, this coach appreciates me as well, okay? Then coach shows support, empathy, and concern for the client. And that's very interesting element here, especially showing the empathy, support, and concern. Whenever clients share something which is challenging for them, it's this express of, it sounds like it is hard for you. Yes? Tell me more about that. It sounds really challenging. Tell me more about that. So being there, being more curious about what the person brings to the space. As well, sometimes during the coaching process, strong emotions show up. Tears, anger, really like high level of anxiety. How we behave in these moments as coaches as well builds trust and safety. Like I remember, I work a lot as a mentor. I prepare a lot of people for MCC and credentials right now. And, ACC, it's not as important, but from PCC to MCC, it's very important to be able to show this support and empathy and concern for the client. And I sometimes see coaches when the client cries during the session, or they almost lose breath. Coach doesn't react because they don't know what to do in the moment. Please, that's as well a space to be vulnerable with yourself and to find the ways. Like what works for you, sometimes it's offering the silence. And then when the clients compose, you say, I saw that it was difficult. What would be useful for you right now? Okay? Do not pretend if something challenging or something strong from emotional perspective is happening in the session, please don't pretend that it's not happening. Because then you're missing a really important element in building the trust and safety with a client. And that's actually when we talk about the breach of trust, it might be one of the reasons. I remember once, it was like, I think decade ago, I was working with a very challenging client, and she had really challenging feedback for her team and being harsh, very direct as well. And she got angry at the coaching with me. Like, I asked her some question. I asked her, what does it mean, this feedback for you? And she's like, oh, Inga, are you stupid? You don't know. They just, they are. And I didn't react in the moment. I was almost paralyzed. I didn't know how to react. She was mean to me during the session. I didn't have enough skill then and ability to be vulnerable in a moment and maybe use it as a learning opportunity. Now, from the skills I have right now as a coach, I probably would stop and say, can I share something with you? The way how you respond to me right now, it made me feel anxious and nervous. And I was wondering, how does it relate to your work as a leader with your team? What do you think about what I just shared with you? I wouldn't overlook it. I wouldn't pretend that nothing happened and just ask her another question. I would do something with it, yeah? Because that's actually showing some kind of, maybe not concern, but doing something in the space with the client. And, because I didn't react, I didn't do anything, this coachee stopped working with me. I think she thought that I'm not a partner for her and that I'm too weak in the moment. And I think that I was too weak. I didn't trust myself that I can challenge her enough. And it showed up in the relationship that ended, unfortunately. So whenever something difficult happens in the session, even if the client attacks you, think how you can change it into the learning opportunity. And as well, being vulnerable and honest, how does it make you feel? Use yourself as an instrument. It is even more important for MCC coaches than PCC coaches, yeah? But it is something which builds trust and safety. Because if you are open as a coach with a client, then mutually they feel more trustful to you somehow. Marker 3 here, coach acknowledges and supports the client's expression of feelings, perception, concerns, beliefs, and suggestions. So this is exactly the same at the ACC. We are curious about our clients. Whenever they use some words, big words, we investigate these words. Whenever they bring some emotions, we ask about these emotions. Yeah, we want to understand. We want to understand how this emotion connects with the goal of the session. And the last marker here is coach partners with the client by inviting the client to respond in any way to the coach's contribution and accepts the client's response. That's a crucial thing. Because, I gave you the example of the insight I could have shared with the client. And if the client would respond, there is no connection there. My role is not to be stubborn and say, no, I see connection. Plus, let's stop, pause, and think about it. But just let it go. Maybe that wasn't the learning moment for this client in the moment, but I did it. I showed something, but I don't get attached to it. So you see, we might share insights with our clients. We might ask them challenging questions. We might show them some inconsistencies in their thinking, but we don't get attached to this. Because if we get attached to this, it means that we can contradict this reality our clients have access to. They might just simply not see the thing. Yeah, I can see that you contradict yourself and I show it to you. You say, no, that's not the case. I move along and we work further because maybe at the next session, you will be ready to hear it. I don't know that. Maybe you will be ready. Maybe in 2 sessions, you will be ready to hear it. My role is just to give you these insights, but do not get attached to that. And that's a tricky thing because coaches, sometimes when I work with coaches, both as a supervisor, as mentor, have a problem with it. Yeah, like, I see it. How can I make my client see it? Keep showing this up. One day your client will be ready to see it. But don't push them. Don't kick, the door if your client is not ready to open the door yet. So that's really important element. So let's get moving to the MCC level of the skill. So we are getting at the highest level of coaching skills. So when we look at the minimum requirements, and by the way, all of the things you can find on the ICF website as well. Yeah, they are available to everybody. So definition is the same. A coach partners with the clients to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the clients to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. And look, what are the minimum requirements for MCC coaches? Seek to understand the client within the context, which may include the identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs. So we are going a little bit deeper here in terms of, for example, cultural differences. We take all of this into consideration, yeah? Demonstrate respect for the client identity, perception, style, and language, and adapts one coaching to the client. So basically, if the client uses some values, we go back to these values. We try to have accumulative listening skills and remember what is important for the client. Yeah, remember this context to this. Acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching process. That's something we carry from PCC. Yeah, like whenever we see our client working, just acknowledge them and say, I really appreciate. I appreciate, you know, that you were brave enough to share your honest feelings here during the session. Yes, that's the acknowledgement and support of the work. Coach as well shows support, empathy, and concern for the client, acknowledges and supports the client's expressions of feelings, perceptions, and concerns, demonstrates openness and transparency as a way to display vulnerability and build trust with the client. And that's the new element. This is the element when we talk about coaches as well. If you truly on MCC level, if you truly master coach, you don't expect vulnerability from the client, but as well, you build trust by displaying your vulnerability. And I'm going to go back to this element later after we're going to dig deeper into 3 layers of trust in coaching relationship. I'm going to go back to this element because it is crucial. So when we look at the MCC level, the minimum standard of skill that must be demonstrated in this competency is that we actually look at our clients as the equal partners in coaching, so that we are partnering in building this environment. We expect them to be vulnerable, and we are vulnerable. We expect them to be open and honest, and we are open and honest. We expect them to be courageous and try new things, and we are courageous, and we try new things with our coaches here. So the MCC level coach demonstrates a complete confidence in self as a coach, in the coaching process, that things doesn't have to happen during the session 1. We've got the whole process to evolve with a client, and as well, full trust in the client as a whole. And we tap into this genuine curiosity about the client's perception, their learning style, you know, they being. We are really, really curious of this another person. Okay, so I try to show you the journey from ACC to MCC, how we get, actually, I should show it this way, because with trust, we get deeper and deeper. And it's more about support and partnering with a client. But I'm curious, are there any questions? Before we go into the art of coaching, are there any questions here?
Yes, Inga, there is this very, I think, precise question that Tarun has asked. Can a coach gain trust without getting attached to the situation faced by the client?
Could you say it again? I need to make sense of this question. Can a coach
gain trust without gaining attached to the situation faced by the client?
Yeah, I think this is a must, to be honest. Yeah, I would encourage you not to get attached to clients. Hence supervision. That's why coaches should have a supervisor, because sometimes when we work along with a client, we really get attached to them or to their teams or to the organization, and it is invisible, but what it happens that we become biased a little bit. So I think that I would encourage you, like, check on a regular basis if you get attached, because actually when you get attached, you stop being a coach, you might become an advocate for your client, and you are you are not the coach any longer in this relationship, which is a problematic thing. And of course, you might have a very nice sessions with a client, but I don't think long term is it an ethical thing to do. So for every coach, I would encourage you to have supervision, coaching supervision at least once a quarter. ICF only requires supervision from team coaches. However, now you can have both mentoring and supervision for different credentials, and supervision gives you CC points as well. So you can utilize it. But supervision is very helpful to notice if you get sacked by the system of the client. So you become the client's advocate, which is not your role. You're a partner, you're not the advocate.
Thanks, Inga, for that lovely distinction. There's a question from Sunil, and he also had given a lovely answer on my prompt, but would love to know your perspective. Does trust begin at the chemistry call or before it, from the coach and the client perspective?
Okay. So would you like to add something to that? Because I saw your energy around this question, so I'm curious about your perspective before I answer something.
You want me to read out Sunil's answer?
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious what are your thoughts.
Yeah. So Sunil, would you like to unmute and share, or would you want me to read out what's there on the chat box?
Either way it works, Vijay. Either way it works.
Yeah, go ahead, Sunil.
So yeah, Inga, I've been listening to you, I think, with a lot of attention, a lot of curiosity. So my perspective is, when I asked, and I also had that reflection with myself, is for even the client as well as for the coach, it begins way before the session. And for the client, especially, maybe now it's, LinkedIn, websites, or in-person recommendation, for them to even look at you and sort of consider you, there's that element of trust around the coaching and the coach to be established. And, maybe answering my own question at this point, for us too, so from the point of view of the coach, you'll have to implicitly trust the process and trust the client that they're coming in with that trust.
Well, Sunil, we've got 100% agreement here. I fully agree with you. Trust starts long before chemistry session. Of course, some element of it is credibility, and our clients choose us for something, and it could be LinkedIn profile, it could be somebody else's recommendation, it could be referral, or it could be, I don't know, the encounter they had with us and so on. But for me, trust is the foundation. Whenever I get into the relationship, even if the client is not choosing me after the initial engagement, I trust that they are capable of doing the work they want to do. And I will be vulnerable with you. It wasn't something which was like inborn feature of me as a coach. I come from the culture which is really distrustful. I'm originally Polish. Trust is not something which is embedded in us. If people are nice to us, you want something. That's a manipulation thing happening. We had a very difficult history, to be honest with you, when we look through the years of being, under Soviet Union and then divided to different big countries for 200 years and so on and so on. So we are very distrustful. I had to learn it. But now, and it didn't happen at the beginning of my coaching practice. That was something I discussed with my mentor and with my supervisors, that I doubt, I had this feeling that my clients are not capable of doing something. Now, this is the entry point. Yes, I'm here for you. Let's see how to make this happen. Because I saw so many clients going much farther than they wanted in the coaching process, that my assumption was nowhere near of what they were capable of. And that's what changed. I believe that trust starts earlier. Very often, in terms of a business relationship, somebody buys your services, it starts with credibility. So that's why I feel that coaches needs to as well be mindful of the credibility online when clients are choosing us. But chemistry call is just, it's for checking chemistry. Do we have the same vibe somehow? I would say. And now I'm happy that I learned as well to say no to clients after chemistry calls. I say, like, I don't think it would be the best relationship. I think that, for example, it's not the coaching you're looking for. I can recommend you a great specialist in this area. What do you think about that? Yeah, I wouldn't do it like 10 years ago. I would just, doubt that I'm capable, no trust whatsoever, but I would jump into this relationship. Yes. And I think it's pretty normal at the certain moments of our relationships. Okay. What other questions do we have?
Yeah, one more question, Inga. This has come up once or twice, and maybe you can take this and move ahead. This is from Babu Raj. This is very fundamental. We use trust many times and presume that all are with the same understanding. Hence, would appreciate your definition of trust based on your experience.
Yeah. So I'm stealing a little bit from different definitions of trust. For me, trust, it's not about liking or disliking each other. Like safety is not about liking or disliking. It's not about fuzzy, nice feelings and so on. Trust is about, it's happening in a relationship. That's the most important thing. And it's about how much open, how much honest, how much vulnerable we can be with ourselves. And as well, there is a limit to all of this. So if I look at the lower limit, there is an upper limit, because I think that vulnerability and openness without boundaries is aggression. So I think that there is a healthy level of both. Yeah, we like, I don't have to know every single detail about my client, especially very intimate details, and they don't have to know that about me for sure. So boundaries, top and bottom boundaries, but this level of openness, vulnerability, and as well challenge, that can help my client actually go beyond what they think is possible for them right now. That's my definition of trust. So I don't put trust in the same box as liking each other. That's a chemistry. That's do we have a nice time together? And sometimes having this nice time together might be an obstacle for really having an open, honest relationship. Yeah. So I'm always like, as I say, this is a thin line. We want to have a good relationship with our clients, but sometimes we may get into being too nice or too friendly or too accommodating, so they don't grow. Yeah. So trust is not about this. It's not about liking each other. It's about being honest, open, and vulnerable. So it wasn't a very nice definition, like, something I can write on a slide, but that's how I look at it. Yeah.
Thank you, Inga. There's one more question, either now or towards the end. You can take
it. Maybe let's wait till the end, because I would like to get to the art of coaching right now. And let me use the poem as something which I use very often when I think about the art of coaching. There is this poet, Mary Olivier, and she wrote a very short poem which is called 3 Things to Remember. As long as you're dancing, you can break the rules. Sometimes breaking the rules is just extending the rules. Sometimes there are no rules. And because trust and safety, they are so elusive, and we try to measure them with the science of coaching, with these competencies. But at the end of the day, there is you and your partner in this dance, and this is a client. And here the art shows up, the art of coaching. So let's think about how to now show trust in a relationship in your own unique way, looking at different layers of the trust. So, these are rules. Be sure that you understand that you know them. However, think how you can show up in a trusting and safety relationship with your client, partnering with your client in your own unique way, because we are all unique coaches there. Okay, so when we look at the trust in a business environment, very often I see this kind of division that, we trust people who we share values with, we trust people who've got integrity, and that's the credibility comes from. We trust people who have concern for others. We trust people who are competent. That's important as well. We perceive them as a competent. So you can see that integrity and competence builds credibility. And we trust people who are accountable. So if they promise something, they stick to their promises. And I don't think that coaches are free from this. By the way, I just don't believe that we have to have shared values with our clients in order to coach them well. And very often sometimes people are, when I share it, people are like, no, we have to have shared values. But let's think about religion, for example. I know that we shouldn't be discussing it openly, but I coach people from a different religion background. And of course, there are basic, I think, golden rules present in all of the religions, but they might be very unique values there. And I don't have to share their values in their religious belief in order to be a good coach for them. So be careful in this, yeah? Sometimes actually clients might benefit in having a coach from completely different culture with completely different value set, because that would be a unique and creative way to challenge them. So think about it, especially if you coach clients from different cultures than yours, that you bring something unique and really creative to this relationship. But be accountable. If you promise something, please stick to it, to your client. Try, competent, work on your craft. Yes. So have a mentor, have a supervisor, train yourself, check competences as much as possible, and have integrity and show concern for others. So if you think about these 5 levels of trust in the business environment, the only bottom one is not as important for me as the top 4th one. However, in coaching, when we really think about the coaching, there are 3 kinds of trust we need to look into. Trusting my coaching skills, trusting my client, and trusting in the coaching process. And that's something where art of coaching shows up. So let's unpack it a little bit. So let's go into trusting my coaching skills. And that's a big one, because you would be surprised how many times I have a privilege to mentor or supervise coaches who come with the questions to me and say, oh my God, Inga, I feel that ICF rules and, everything what ICF wants from us. This is actually, this is like this kosher, clean coaching, but in a real relationship, I'm not able to do it. My clients want value and I need to bring value to them. So I need to be a mentor or a trainer in the moment. Okay. And then I have the feeling that this coach doesn't trust so much their coaching skills. They don't trust so much that coaching is good enough to help these clients to move forward. So if you have the urge all the time to put the hat of a trainer during the coaching session or put the hat of a mentor in the coaching session, it might be the sign that you don't trust your skills as a coach, that you don't trust so much powerful questions and sharing insights, using yourself as an instrument in the session and challenging the client, that you don't use this, or you don't trust contracting so much that you feel the need that you have to provide something else than coaching. Okay? So trusting your coaching skills is resisting to act as a mentor. And I have a very strong opinion about that. I don't have any problem if you sell something which is called coach salting. A lot of professionals I know, they sell coach salting, and it's great. You combine consulting and then you have a coaching session. But be honest with yourself what you're selling to your client. If you sell coaching, be a coach and trust yourself that all of these things which are described in the competencies actually are enough to help your client move forward. Okay, so I'm going to probably hear a lot of questions about that, especially that we are pressured by business environments to bring value to our clients. Yeah, and one way which I do, especially when the client is persistent and they keep on asking me or for advice or suggestion as well, I want to build alliance with them. I usually say, I hear that you have a lot of unanswered questions in this area. I can hear as well that you perceive me as a person who can give you answers. Of course, I had some experience in this area. I know from my clients, other clients, how they manage with it. I'm just curious, where is this belief that I have the right answer coming from? And then what I share with my clients, I say, but I've got this rule. I'm happy to add something. If they are really, 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 really persistent, I say, like, I'm happy to add something, but my rule is 3 before me. I would invite you to come up with 3 ideas by yourself, and then I will add some ideas to it. And the trick is that I never give one idea. I give 2 or 3. And you know what happens when they are forced first to give 3 ideas first, and then I add something too, and then they have a selection of the ideas, and I ask them, okay, again, accountability to them, which ones would you like to choose to experiment with? They hardly ever use my idea because they worked so hard in coming up with these 3 first ideas. But that's the rule which helps me. Not every client is very persistent. Yes, sometimes they ask this like, but Inga, what do you think? And I can change it into some question. I can say like, you know what I'm thinking on when you ask me what I think. I'm thinking that you probably already know the answer for this question. I'm just curious, like in the past, in a similar situations, what have you tried so far? So I tried different ways, coaching ways to get the client to find the answer because I trusted coaching as a tool and I trusted my client is capable of answering these questions. Yeah. Okay. So trusting my coaching skills is not resisting this urge to put a mentor hat on or a trainer hat on or a consultant hat on, but trusting your coaching. Okay. Next level is trusting my client. And again, I trust my client that they are capable and whole, that they are creative. And I use the word generative. It's a funny word, but I learned it during ORSC's fundamental training that the environment is generative. And I think like, no, my clients are generative. Generative meaning that they are capable of generating something new in the conversation with me. And I trust my clients. They're capable of doing it. So trusting my client encompasses this deep belief that clients possess this inner understanding of themselves, which I don't have because I'm just the partner of this journey. I'm not inside of them, even if certain aspects remain unexplored yet. So they might not know it yet. Even if something is invisible for them, they have this innate understanding. Okay, and I recognize their capacity for creativity, resilience, and wholeness. Okay, and as well, all this trusting my client is embracing the unique contribution to the coaching process. Yeah, what they bring, what they want. So that's why, for example, very often in the coaching process, I ask my clients, yeah, so how would you like to proceed right now? Like, you talked about these 3 things which are important for you right now. Which one do you feel it's worth to concentrate on today? That's trusting my clients that they know. It's not me choosing it. Yeah. And as well, okay, so I'm hearing this excitement here. What is this excitement telling you? I trust my client that they know the answer. It's not me interpreting this excitement for them. Yes, like, or I see like, oh, you just get this deep sigh. I'm not interpreting it for the client because I trust that they are capable of interpreting it themselves. And my favorite way, if I see this energy change or something happening with their body language, I always ask like, oh, I noticed something right now. What is your body telling you now? And they are much better at interpreting it than I would. Of course, I have some assumptions in my head. I have like, oh, it shows anxiety or it shows excitement or it shows something. But when I ask them, what is your body telling you right now? What is this emotion telling you right now? They do much better job. And I trust that they will do much better job than me. Again, trusting my client is, it's visible in the way I offer them insights. Because remember, a lot of coaches, especially just after the training, they believe that we just ask questions. That's not true. We offer our clients insights, but there is a way to do it in coaching. And we do it in a certain manner. Like we ask for permission first, we share an observation, and then we ask about their perspective. I will show you the example. Like I see something happening in my clients, some let's say inconsistency. They said something and then they shared something else. So I will say, is it okay if I share an observation? And the client says yes. Earlier in the conversation, you said it was your goal that team members take more responsibility, but it sounded like you just shared a story of where you took the responsibility for the person's failure to act. What do you think about what I have just shared? So you see, I'm noticing something and I'm sharing the insight with the client. Yes. However, I show them the inconsistency in their thinking, and I go back to them. Again, we're partnering here. I don't tell them what it means. I just tell them, like, what do you think about what I just shared? Or sometimes I use myself as an instrument. And for example, clients sharing the story with me, and suddenly I feel I cannot breathe, or I feel anxiety when I listen to the story. And I will do exactly the same. I would say, would it be okay if I share something with you? Yes, please. When you were telling the story, I just noticed the strong emotion in me. Like, I don't know, I couldn't breathe for a second. And I'm just curious, like, does it resonate a lot at all with you? And the client sometimes says, no. And that's okay. And you remember, we let it go and we move forward. But sometimes the client says, like, you know, when the first time I thought about it, I had exactly the same emotion. This is exactly how I felt. So trusting your client is trusting that when you share the observation, you give them the ability to interpret it. It's their way to interpret it. And that's the trusting element in it. That's the art here. You know, I always recognize very capable coaches if they do this kind of interventions. You know, we show inconsistency, we show, what else? Inconsistency, we show, if we notice something happening in them, we show, like, for example, is it okay if I share some observation? You use the word power at least 10 times so far in our conversation. What does it mean for you? So, you know, we believe that our client is able to make sense of the things we observe. Okay, and now the third level. And the third level is trusting in the process. That's a funny thing. And that's as well, I notice I work with coaches who come to the supervision and they tell me, like, oh my God, there was such a difficult session with this client. We talked about this topic, and there was, like, you know, no tangible change at the end. And I'm always like, but you know, coaching is not a standalone event. It's not a one session. You've got the whole process to work with this client. And or sometimes you made some observation at the beginning and client does not resonate with it. They are not ready. Their access to reality is as big right now, and they do the work within this reality they have access to. Trust the process. Trust that coaching, that consistent observations, consistent sharing, that asking challenging questions help your client move step by step. And one day, it might not be session 2, it might not be the session 4, it might be the session 9. They will finally click and they will see. And as well, I will share the story with you. This is a kind of funny story again. I was preparing for my PCC then, and I was living in Poland then, and I was looking for the client who speaks English. And some man was recommended to me as a client. I didn't want to work with a coach to this. I want to have a business related client. Neither of my current clients agreed to be recorded, but this man said, yes, please record me. And we had this agreement that I gave him discounted process for this ability to record. We had 5 sessions together, and I hated working with him. I didn't feel that any of the sessions were good to send for PCC. Eventually, I chose one from this process. He forgot his goals. Like I didn't understand what he was looking for. He was very resistant as well. And I supervised this process a lot. I was like, oh my God, what's going on with this man? I don't know. We don't have trust here at all. Because I didn't know that he did a lot of thinking in his head. He wasn't ready to say everything openly then at the time. But you know what happened? We finished this, that was 2014, I got my PCC then. We finished this relationship, and year after, he came back to me. And when I saw him calling me, I had this kind of thought, oh my God, this guy, I don't want to work with him. And he called me and he said, Inga, I'm so grateful. Due to this coaching process, you know, my life transitioned. I got the promotion I was really looking for. Now I'm the director of this whole unit. And I was like, you know, racking my brain and thinking, what promotion? We never discussed any promotion. The goals were so vague and so on. Yeah. But he said, because of this process, he got what he wanted. And I was like, okay. Now he's one of my best friends. We really liked each other. I supported his team in a transition. And it is just the lesson. It was like, this is the biggest lesson for me, that I need to trust the process. Sometimes I don't see the results in the moment. Sometimes results of the coaching happen much later, or they might happen after the coaching finishes. But as long as the client is willing to come and to talk to you, and you are willing to work with them and to be vulnerable. Now, by the way, I would share it with him. Yeah. Now, looking at my skills, I would probably stop this process and say, if it's okay if I share something with you. Every time when you show up to this session, you don't remember what we agreed to work on. I'm curious. What does it tell you? I didn't do it at the time because I didn't have the skills and capacities. Now I would definitely do it. That would be me being vulnerable a little bit with him in the moment. But trust the process. Trust that it doesn't have to happen immediately. It might happen later in the game. It might happen even after the coaching process finishes. Okay? And this is probably the most difficult element of the art of coaching, this trust. There is a dance. And sometimes the most important reflection happens after the dance is finished. So what I would encourage you to do now, maybe to think about this and think about which one of these three elements, trusting my clients, trusting in the coaching process, trusting my coaching skills, do you feel you need to focus on? And if you want, you can write it in the chat. If you want, maybe somebody would like to turn on mic and speak up and maybe share which element of trust in the coaching process resonated with them the most.
Use the hand raise feature if anybody wants to speak.
Okay, let me go back here.
Yes,
okay.
Johnny, and then perhaps Shankar.
So for me, the trusting my client is the most resonating part.
Yeah, that's a big piece.
Yeah, my client helps me to navigate through the coaching process, and that's when I realized that I bring my best version in that conversation. So everything starts with trusting my client.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny. Shankar?
Hi, Inga. For me, I think it is trusting the coaching process, given where I am in the coaching journey.
Yeah. Oh, you muted again.
Yeah, I got muted, sorry. So for me, it is trusting the coaching process. And the question I had in my mind is, how different is trusting the coaching process from trusting my coaching skills? I know they kind of overlap, but can you help clarify that?
Your coaching skills is more in the moment, that when for example, something happens in the session, and like, for example, coachee cries. Yes, so you trust that by showing empathy or creating the space, it's going to deepen the relationship between you and the coach. Or when coachee constantly asks you questions like, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? That you have coaching tools to manage the situation, not just immediately jump into mentoring thing. Okay. Or when you feel vulnerable because you discover that your client is far from the area you feel even capable of understanding. Yeah. Like, as I said, I spend most of the time of the clients from tech environment. I generally understand tech, but it's not every client I work with. Sometimes I work with clients from completely different area than I've ever worked with. And at the beginning, I had these pangs of doubt in myself. Yeah, like, oh my God, am I going to be a good coach here if I don't understand the context? But yeah, coaching as a tool is enough. And trusting the process, if some magic is not happening today, it doesn't mean that the coaching is not working. So that's the difference.
Thank you very much.
Alexander? Okay.
I think they are equal.
These three are equal?
Yes.
Yeah, I do agree with you. They have to happen. Yeah, like this is they interweave, if I can say it that way, and they create the fabric of coaching. Yeah, this is, or I would say, canvas of coaching, if we are in the art of coaching somehow. Yeah, they are as important. So I would say that whenever you start, you work on all of them at the same time. Yeah.
Baburaj, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Inga. That piece of conversation was very, very, very meaningful. For me, like what Joni said, it is trusting my client, because that's an area where I find my journey towards PCC. What I find is that it's more challenging, because we get into a lot of assumptions. And so therefore, the need to trust the client and ensuring that he will come out with his own process, and trusting the process has become much more critical for me, while appreciating Alexander's point that all three are important. But for me, in my journey, trusting my client was more critical.
I resonate with that as well, especially, when I got into coaching, and that's a funny story as well. I got to coaching because I was a really bad manager myself, yeah, and coaching changed me. So naturally, my first clients were emerging leaders. And I had experience in this area. So sometimes it was really, really, it was really difficult at the beginning to trust that they are capable of making the transition, or even trust into their ideas. But the more I trusted, the more I let clients experiment with what they wanted to do. And I'm referring to the beginning of my career, yeah, somehow. Instead of suggesting something in the end, or adding the resources at the end or something, the more I let them experiment, the more trust I gain in the client, in the process, that honestly, this is the best way, because sometimes my way of doing things are not the best for them. So yeah, trusting my clients is a huge thing. And honestly, if I would recommend you to think about it, that in a dialogue with you create the opportunity for your clients to be generative. So generate ideas. That's how you do it, like through questions, through challenges, through observations. Yeah, you help them generate ideas. That's why the coaching is for, somehow. Okay.
Thank you, Inga. I think there's just one question if we can take before we move forward to wrap up. I'm mindful of time. We have 5 minutes to go. This is from Tarun. On a real-time basis, in the midst of a coaching session, any one or two tips as to coach ensuring that they don't start playing the role as a trainer or a mentor or even a consultant?
Yeah. So as I said, my favorite one is to first show empathy to the client. That's the first thing. If somebody asks you, Inga, what would you do? Inga, what is your suggestion? Like, how would you cope with this? I show them empathy, because it means that they really struggle. Yeah, like I'm hearing that this is a challenging topic for you. Like, oh, I'm seeing that you're really looking for support everywhere. So that's the first thing I do. Show empathy. Then I very often jump into resourceful past. And then this empathy is connected with almost like a spotting strength in my clients. You're like saying, but I'm pretty sure that you, like, even if you don't see it yet, you either tried something similar, or you've got some kind of experience in the past, or we can utilize some of your experiences from the different areas here. So what do you think? Let's maybe try with the things which remind you of this situation. So resourceful paths, either what have you tried so far, or what reminds you of the situation, what did you do then, and so on, so on. And people always respond to that. It's maybe once or twice in my 16 years of experience as a coach, somebody told me like, no, I have never had experience like that. Okay. And then I can actually go to, like, role models, apart from me, because clearly I thank you for that. You look at me as a person who knows the answer, but apart from me, who are the people who doing this thing well you want to achieve? Or who are the people around you who possess the skill you want to get? Or who are the people you assume would know what to do apart from me? Okay, so these are the three elements I would do. Yes, so empathy, resourceful past, and then role models around you. However, if the client is still persistent and still coming back to Inga, what would you do? What would you do? Tell me, I'm very curious. Either tell them 3 before me. So yes, I'm happy to share something with you. But first, I would encourage you to give me some 3 ideas. Yeah, 3 ideas from you, and then I will share something from you. And the trick with sharing ideas is not telling, this is the way to do it. Yeah, like this is the model, you have to do it. But okay, so the case you wanted to solve reminds me about this client, or reminds me about the situation when, then I share the story and I ask the question at the end, what's in it for you? How is the story useful for you? So they, again, make sense. So like you see, I try not to give them suggestions, or even if I give them some kind of story or example later after they provide ideas, it always ends up with a question. Yeah, like how can you take advantage of it? Like what elements of the story are useful for you? What elements of the solution are useful for you? And the end, again, the many of options. Yeah, like, okay, so you said this idea, this idea, this idea. Then I added these 2 ideas. Which one do you want to experiment with? So as you see, like decision-making is always on the client. So I hope that it answers the questions a little bit in the moment when the clients ask us to be a mentor.
Oh,
okay.
what a hands-on, practical, and very, I would say, grounded response. Thank you, Inga. And I think we are nearing our end of our time. You want to just wrap up whatever you had, Inga? And I think
yeah, I wanted just to show you one thing. Yeah, I said that I will comment on this element from MCC, that coach demonstrates openness and transparency as a way to display vulnerability and build trust with the client. I think that this element, this vulnerability is crucial. I would give the example of tears, offering silence when the tears are in the session as the vulnerability, or being vulnerable by sharing some observation. Yeah, like I felt anxious when you said that. What do you think about that? Or how does it relate to whatever we're discussing here? So remember that using yourself as an instrument is actually mastery and coaching. That's the important element. So I can just hope that everything what we discussed, it's not magic, but you understand how to take the science of coaching, so there's different levels of competencies, and change it into the art. However, if you have any more questions, this is the QR code for my LinkedIn profile. I always happy to connect with coaches. And when I say connect, I honestly answer the questions. If you have whatever questions you have relating to this competency or other competencies, or you would like to learn more about, how to become supervisor, for example, I assume that there are a lot of great seasoned coaches here. I'm always happy to direct you in the place where you can gain new skills as a coach. Yes, so please feel free to connect. Of course, if there are any other questions, I'm still happy to answer. Maybe I will just stop sharing the screen so I can see your faces again, if you don't mind. So
while we get people on screen and you can see them, Inga, this is a great moment for all of us to just grab a photo ops here. So if you could just turn on your cameras for just a minute, let's all get a photo together with Inga. And, it's been such an inspiring session. Everyone's been holding on. Thank you, everyone. And if you could just avoid using the chat box for just a moment, that would be great. Okay, I guess everyone's camera is turned on. Cheers, everyone. Cheers to Inga, and cheers to a lovely session this evening.
Oh, thank you. I love to see your faces here. Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. Coaches from all over the world. Yeah, that's, as I said, I had this assumption that it's going to be mostly people from India, but it's wonderful. Yeah, it as well shows what you as a chapter, Chennai, what you do in terms of advocating for coaching education, because that's really important that we as coaches, we actually spend time on learning and educating. Yeah. So are there any other questions I could be answered? Yes, I will be sharing the PowerPoint. I will send the PowerPoint to Viji, and I believe you will have access to it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can find a way to reach it to participants who are here or who are interested. So on that note, it is my great pleasure again really, I mean, I can't wrap the session up, honestly, because it was just so much. Apart from the slides and the content, I think, Inga, what stood out for me personally was your generosity. And I think sharing lived, grounded, very hands-on experiences that you can't find in a book, or, you just can't get off the shelf. This comes from very rich experience and, I would say masterful coaching. So thank you so much, Inga. And I think the chat box is just buzzing with lovely, lovely comments. And I think it just inspires us to do a lot more at ICF Chennai. And you're absolutely right. All our webinars have always been, doors open for anybody who's interested in coaching and, bringing together the ICF fraternity. I think we are all far more connected than we are different. And with that spirit, I think this is brilliant. I mean, you are sitting here in the United States. It's what, 7 o'clock, 6:30 for you. It's,
yeah, 7:30 now.
Absolutely. It's dinner time for most of us in India. And then, there are people from other time zones. But I think all of us here are together committed for learning. Coach friends, please do claim your CCUs. This session entitles you to 1.5 core competency CCU units that you can use for renewal. The passcodes are in the chat box. We will not repeat the opening passcode. That is our way of just ensuring full attendance. On that note, any last few words, Inga, from you?
I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for the questions. But sometimes, as with coaching, we trust the learning process here. Something shows up much later. So if after even looking at the presentation or maybe rewatching this recording, you still have some doubts, I would encourage you, first of all, chapter is full of such a wonderful coaches like Viji herself and Raj and other wonderful people. So I'm really grateful for the invitation. But as well, be sure that you regularly mentor and supervise your work. That's my biggest recommendation. Because
thank you so much, Inga.
Because both mentors and supervisors can help you with seeing what's going on with trust and safety on both sides. Because remember, that's a partnering. And I think you can have access to wonderful mentors and supervisors all over the world you are. That's luckily we have a great group of mentors and supervisors with ICF.
Thank you so much. Thank you, coaches. And Inga has been so generous in extending her invitation for us to be connected. So please do reach out to her on LinkedIn. And I must say, Inga was super generous the moment I wrote to her, and she immediately accepted and she said, "Hey, let's go." So here we are. And on that note, wish you all a lovely rest of the day. Happy happy dinner or whatever else you have to head to, and see you back very soon next month. And I think, early in the coming month, we have our edition of All Things Coaching. We will also have other events coming up, so we will keep you posted. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Inga. Thank you.